Russia's latest move to declare Ukraine's two breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent territories has alarmed the West. The move comes in a clear violation of international warnings and sanctions. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting in the light of the deepening tensions. Let's now first listen into what Russia and Ukraine said at the United Nations Security Council.
There has also been shelling of some towns and villages on Russian territory near the border zone. And so it has become clear that Donbass is on the brink of a new Ukrainian military adventure. I would like to call upon our Western colleagues to think twice, to set emotions to one side, and not to make the situation worse. No one other than you can hold back the militaristic plans of Kyiv and force it to stop the shelling and provocations against the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics, which in these new conditions could have extremely dangerous consequences. In accordance with the agreements that were signed today and on the basis of their requests from the Republic, peacekeeping functions on their territories will be carried out by the armed forces of the Russian Federation.
In accordance with Article 51 of the Charter, Ukraine has the inherent right to individual and collective self-defense. We are committed to a peaceful and diplomatic path, and we will stay firmly on it. We are on our land. We are not afraid of anything or anyone. We owe nothing to anyone, and we will not give away anything to anyone. There should be no doubts whatsoever, because it is not February 2014. It is February 2022.
The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that Putin's claims of sending troops to eastern Ukraine as peacekeepers is nonsense. She also said that Putin's latest speech amounted to a series of outrageous false claims that were aimed at creating a pretext of war. Meanwhile, the UK has accused Russia of making a mockery of the Minsk agreement. The UK has also urged the Security Council to stand united against Russia. France condemned Russia's recent activity and said that the country is planning targeted sanctions on those who took these illegal decisions. Germany, meanwhile, said that Moscow was breaking the Minsk peace agreements that it signed in 2014. And with this decision, Russia was breaking all its promises to the world community. Listen in.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia will recognize as independent states the so-called DPR and LPR regions, the sovereign territory of Ukraine, an area controlled by Russia's proxies since 2014. He has since announced that he will place Russian troops in these regions. He calls them peacekeepers. This is nonsense. We know what they really are. In doing so, he has put before the world a choice. We must meet the moment, and we must not look away. History tells us that looking the other way in the face of such hostility will be a far more costly path.
Russia's decisions are a violation of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine and inconsistent with the principles of the UN Charter. Third, to international law. The actions taken today make mockery of the commitments Russia has made through the Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk agreements.
We call on Russia to match its words with its deeds when it claims to be in favor of dialogue, and to go back on its decision to recognize the separatist entities. With our European partners, we are preparing targeted sanctions against those who took part in this illegal decision.
Now, for more analysis into Russia's recent move, joining us live now from Moscow is Alexander Dinkin, an academician. Thank you so much, Alexander, for joining us on WION at this hour. I want your take on what you think about Russia's recent moves, recognizing two controversial separatist regions. Now, the West says this is a clear sign of an impending invasion. What's your view on the same?
Well, it's not an invasion. I guess this is the recognition of reality which existed on the ground already 8 years. And, you know, the reason is that it was long-lasting delay in implementation of Minsk agreement. And nobody could push Kyiv to start implementing those agreements. And the essence of the situation, it's not about the territory, it's about completely 4 million Russian people who lives on these territories.
Right, but you know, the West has said that Russia's recent move is a clear violation of the Minsk peace agreements, while the West, led by the United States and its European allies, is all set to announce harsher sanctions against Russia. But will all this deter President Putin? That's a big question, of course.
You know, we are already survived weathering more than 100 rounds of just US sanctions. And if Russia violated something serious, it's violated Western monopoly for the violation of international law.
Right. What at this point is going, according to you, in President Putin's mind? I think the world wants to know what are Russia's true intentions when it comes to Ukraine. The West, of course, has been raising global alarm, saying that Russia will attack Ukraine at any time now. Ukraine, of course, says that it is prepared for any kind of predicament. What, according to you, is on President Putin's mind right now?
I guess, first of all, this is the ceasefire on the line dividing Ukraine and this Luhansk and Donetsk Republic, because recent week there were serious battles on this line. As you know, Russia started, and those republics, they started the evacuation of the population from the Traubit area, where there were no supply of water, no supply of heat, and there is a rather devastating situation on the ground in those republics.
Is President Putin at all afraid of the global isolation that may follow should his move lead to further sanctions, further global isolation? Is Putin afraid at all of what's to come?
Well, I guess no. If he would be afraid, he would not make this decision. It's clear like that. And I guess that, you know, demise of empire always a tragedy, always brings long-lasting consequences. And I guess that for Indian audience, it is much more understandable than for any other audience. I mean, your relations with Pakistan.
Right. Just clarifying, is President Putin prepared for any kind of consequences that may follow if the US and European allies were to impose harsher sanctions as the threat stands?
I already answered this question, that we are weathering more than 100 rounds of sanctions. We could weather any other sanctions, I guess. And, you know, this, let's say, rather intensive dialogue with the West, which was started on December 17th, when Moscow sent its proposal for the treaty with the United States and agreement with NATO countries, there were no positive answer on the main issue of that.
Right.
So how wait longer, the patience is over, so this is the situation.
Right. My final question as we wrap up our discussion, is this a clear sign of an escalation of the conflict? Weeks of diplomacy have failed to achieve any kind of breakthrough on either side. How do you see this crisis panning out in the next few weeks?
You know, I guess that the opportunity for diplomacy is open, and Moscow is expected the meeting between Minister Lavrov and State Secretary Blinken on February 24. And diplomacy is still open. It's open for Kyiv, it's open for the West, and it's open for Russia.
Absolutely, Alexander. Thank you so much for speaking to us at WION World is One, and thank you for all those insights.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.